Well, thank you very much for that very kind introduction. And since I am representing the Council of Agricultural Science and Technology, I would like to just give you just a couple of comments about CAST. CAST is an organization that was started some 40 years ago to really try to explain the importance of science and technology of agriculture. And I think that's something we can all agree with. The primary work of CAST is doing something with information. We can mobilize task forces that includes all scientific disciplines, including non-agricultural disciplines if it's appropriate to address a particular issue at hand. And of course, you can see what CAST does online. In fact, if you go to cast.org, you can get reports and all kinds of information that's useful and helpful. And the Friday notes, if you remember, you get a summary of information every Friday that brings you up to date on what's happening in Washington, as well as a number of different articles and information that's useful and helpful and that sort of thing. We also have an effort in Washington to try to keep our congressional delegation informed from a broad perspective from 30,000 feet. And now to get to the business at hand today, and first I want to thank you for inviting me. And for those of you that were at the meeting in Chicago, you can either doze a little bit or whatever. I'm going to say some of the same things, but there will be some different things, so pay attention closely. I really appreciate the opportunity for being with you, and I can tell you, corn, as you already heard from your president, is an important crop. No one would argue with that. In fact, if we had a national crop, I think it should be corn. In fact, you might ought to make corn the national crop because it is such an important crop grown in every single state in the union, as you well know. And I guess I'm kind of proud of the fact that you can call me a part-time corn farmer because I do rotate corn with peanuts. This is the year for peanuts, so I'm not a corn farmer this year, but I will be next year, I promise you. I think the topic of our paper that we were charged to do by the Council of Agricultural Science and Technology, Agricultural Productivity Strategies for the Future, is particularly timely today. I was honored to be a part of a writing team that included two very distinguished entomologists, Luther Tweet from the Ohio State University and Bob Hurt from the formerly with the Rockefeller Foundation, but also now at Cornell University. The preface was written by Dr. Norman Borlaug. We had three very able reviewers, Chuck Connor, who was Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, and now with the President CEO of the National Farmers Cooperative. Charlie Hess, a formerly administrator in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, recently University of California, Davis, and Per Pinstrup-Anderson from Cornell University. It's a special pleasure to dedicate this particular CAST paper to Dr. Borlaug. I think all of us in this room knew Dr. Borlaug. He was recipient of the 1970 Nobel Peace Prize, but also a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom and also the Congressional Gold Medal. And there's not many folks in the world that's received all three of those recognitions. Dr. Borlaug is often called the father of the Green Revolution. He's credited with the British publication The Economist with saving more lives because of his work to alleviate hunger than any other human being. What a legacy that is for an individual. Norm was a founding member of CAST because he believed we should communicate agricultural science and technology to the public at large and to our congressional people and to others. This paper was dedicated to Norm, and he authored CAST paper number 1. In fact, this was kind of a follow-up to his first paper in which he talked about the importance of getting the public at large to understand agricultural science and technology. So he was very excited to help us put this paper together, and he wrote the preface to the paper. I want to read a short excerpt from that preface. This is Dr. Borlaug's comment. In the next 50 years, we're going to have to produce more food than we have in the last 10,000 years. The only way we're going to get there is through genetic engineering, and certainly biotechnology is one of those tools that must have acceptance. But right now, in many parts of the world, that's a constraint. I think future agricultural productivity will depend to a great extent powerful tools of biotechnology. There's still significant voices in this country, as well as some parts of Europe, that oppose genetic engineering, and I think that's a concern. Animal welfare issues is also another constraint to agricultural productivity. In fact, animal protein constitutes a major part of the diet of many people on this planet. However, particularly in Europe, and certainly in some quarters of this country, there's strong voices that oppose animal agriculture on the surface and underneath. That is a great, great concern that I have, and one that I think is going to continue being a constraint on agricultural productivity. In light of that, CAST is sponsoring the latter part of this week a major conference on sustaining animal agriculture, balancing bioethical, economic, and social issues. This conference is going to be in Washington Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. CAST has long recognized the challenge of animal agriculture. In fact, we've issued over 20 papers at one time or another in various aspects of animal agriculture. It is a very important area. Another constraint is Endangered Species Act. Preserving the planet's diversity of animals and plants is certainly something that's important, but I can tell you, preserving different species comes at a cost. And I think we have to become more effective in balancing the cost versus benefit of the Endangered Species Act. If you want to see what happens when you don't have research, just turn on the TV and listen to what happened in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, I had an associate director of the experiment station when I was leading director of the experiment station at Auburn University. He used to say, once you need the results of research, it's too late to start. Someone should have told BP that a few years ago. They were doing research on how to stop the oil leak while it was gushing forward. Not a good way to do research. So we need to be thinking about that for agriculture. And my point is a wake-up call to let's start doing the research that we know we're going to need, because oil and natural gas and coal are finite resources. That means they're going to run out one day. Now, whether it's in the decade or the next century or in 3 centuries, they're going to run out at some point. And we need to be doing the research that ensures a sustainable future. Responding to the needs is not solely the province of the government, certainly not Congress, industry leaders, or state governments. The public at large has got to be involved, and this is the point Dr. Bullock always made, is that everybody's got to be involved in this. Everybody has got to have a stake if they've got to be concerned. Particularly on such broad issues as global climate change. How do we respond to that? Environmental regulations, animal welfare, natural resource utilization, investments in agriculture, research, and education. These are all factors that the public at large has a stake in. The greatest concern of the authors of this paper was the apparent lack of commitment of research by the United States and many other countries to do the necessary research and education to address the challenges that I've outlined here this evening. They are important for the future. Failure to anticipate research needs is unforgivable. The case of BP is an example. Something might have happened, but they should have done research a long time ago before they had the problem. Remember, if you wait until you need the results, you've done waiting too long. It will take a strong and constant public commitment to address environmental regulations, global climate change, acceptance of new technology, and support for adequate research funding if we're going to survive on this planet. We are hopeful and confident that we can and will make such a commitment. Indeed, we really don't have any choice. Thank you very much.